Let's go to more interesting layers of
Yes. So you grew up, I mean, you were born in Nigeria, then you moved around, then
that.
to Italy.
Uh-huh.
And so now, you identify as Italian.
Yes, I am Italian socialized. I am a socialized Italian person. I am Nigerian. My identity is still that. However, I am socialized in Italy means that my adulthood and my education and my influences, my romantic life, my friendships, my political thoughts was shaped as an adult in that country, influenced by it. And that allowed me to expand and apply all of those things to whatever else I'm interested in, including Nigeria, politics, anti-racism, culture, friendships, everything else. So I'm not going to stay here and say that it's not part of me, because I spent a lot of physical time with my legs on the ground in that country, on the land. As indigenous people, as marginalized people, as racialized people, we know how to value where our legs touch the ground. We know, like anybody that has a diasporic experience knows what it means to be physically connected to that land. So for me, I had to stay in Italy, survive it, understand it, navigate it, experience it, love it, learn to love it, learn to criticize it, learn to have opinions about it, learn to do so many things. So it's not something I can easily ignore. I would one day grow to start having the same kind of passion that I have for Nigeria towards Italy. I say that I discuss Nigeria as my favorite subject.
Yeah.
I'm on my way to start doing the same thing with Italy.
Really?
I'm not kidding with you, because at least from a racialized perspective.
Okay. It's
Because-
not the Italy that exists now.
No, it's Italy within the experience that I see it as. So when I talk to my friends, my racialized friends and other people in Italy, I talk about it from the racialized experience. And my passion emerges from that. To start hoping for the best, not only for me, but also to whoever's coming before me.
Yeah.
So you can see the same connection there. So I cannot stay here and say that I am not Italian,
Yeah.
when I care about it. But I would not compare them. They're two different things. Like, I want to compare Italy to Nigeria or to other experiences I've ever had. They're distinct. Some people would ask you, are you more Italian or Nigerian?
Oh my God.
The dualities of it. People
I get asked that question so
yeah. And that is something that happens to people with multiple experiences and identities or presence in different localities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They start trying to gauge basically your degree of connection to a place.
Okay.
As if that is the thing.
Degree of connection.
Yeah.
How the hell do you measure that?
Thank you very much.
Years
Because people assume that it's universal.
Shaking hands.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck does that mean?
People assume that it's because they want to connect also. That is the thing when you're different.
Are you on my side or on the other person's
Thank you.
side?
People want to know if they can trust you. It's a reassurance thing. It's like, are we on the same boat here?
Yeah.
That is the thing that also defines who is being discriminated and who's not.
They're like
Who's
measuring you up, basically.
Who's trying to
How
integrate?
colonized
How
are
much
you?
exactly?
Yeah.
How much sacrifice can you give? How much can you give to be accepted by? How much can you be integrated? Air quote. How much can you give? And it may never be enough. So those are the conversations people want to know, and it happens not only there. I can tell you, I will be honest with you, I won't lie. It might happen to someone that is born, raised in Nigeria, but from a Chinese descent. Or from Lebanese descent. There's a lot of people from Lebanon in Nigeria. A lot. There's a big diaspora. And people will see them thinking they are white because of skin color, and thinking, hey, they will be surprised that they speak Nigerian language because they are not exposed to that commonality. And then they'll be like, how far? You be Nigerian, so you're like, so we start asking you, are you really Nigerian? Like they will accept you eventually, because we don't have that level of discrimination. Like for us, it's not that big of a thing.
No white supremacy.
Like we don't. We have xenophobia. It's a thing.
Yeah.
But we don't have racism. You know, like not racism as a way of defining institution that exists in the West. No.
Yeah.
Those are two different things people may not even understand. It might fly over their head, but that's another podcast, not this one.
Yeah, I think
Many other podcasts.
you mentioned that that expression last time we talked, institutional racism. I am actually not very sure if I know exactly what that is.
What it means? It means when the state has infrastructures that are meant to discriminate you as a citizen. You know, so for example, let me give you freedom of expression. People think that freedom of expression means that you can say whatever you want. At least from the universal or the International Declaration of Human Rights, or let's just go to the American principle because it's easy for people to understand, because that's mostly where the thing came from. Freedom of expression doesn't mean that you can say whatever you want. Freedom of expression means the government cannot tell you what to say. Digest that. It means the government cannot actively tell you what to say or what not to say.
But I feel like it can tell you what not to say, though.
It could
when it's
try,
not,
and then you sue it, and then you win. That is in the constitution of those countries. Is in the
sure.
Legally,
but like in reality,
it's a different thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
They might abridge your freedom of expression for security reasons and whatever. Blah blah blah.
Like
But they
cancel
cannot tell you
protests.
what to say. That's interference of state. They work for you. So the same thing goes for institutional racism. It means that if I am a citizen, meaning of a country, not a resident, those are different things. We sometimes confuse the rights of citizens with the rights of residents. I live in Japan as a resident of Japan. I don't have the same rights as citizens of Japan.
That's very defined.
The same thing goes for everywhere. So what that means is there are certain rights the Japanese state or the Italian state or the Russian state or whoever state it is can guarantee to its citizens, extend to residents, foreigners, whoever it is. Within those confines, they can also impose certain limitations. You know, it might be policy, it might be... So in the case of Italy, when it comes, for example, to citizenship, there is institutional racism because it makes it difficult for non-Italians to acquire citizenship. If you study Italian citizenship, it's a whole conundrum. It's like a big pot of shit. And I'm not going to tell you what it actually did to Italian women who were not able to get their own citizenship onto another discourse, another time, whole wormhole. Anyway, do your research. If you want to write a thesis, that's the I'm sharing ideas. So basically, the citizenship thing, it takes a lot of difficulties for you to get one. So for example, it's easy for me to have an Italian citizenship if I am adopted by an Italian as an adult or as a minor. Than living in the country and hoping that I manage to get everything, and then the criteria to get it, 10 years. 10 years for you to ask. It's like going in front of a club and the bouncer tells you, wait, before you enter. And you say, how long should I wait? You say 10 years. And then after 10 years, he tells you, okay, so these are the requirements to get in. And you're like, okay, what requirements?
You
it's
can
like
start discussing it
exactly
after 10 years.
Exactly. He says that exactly. He says, okay, do you have your white shoes? You have your kefir? Okay, now you can enter. But I have to ask the manager to make sure that the things that you're supposed to have are correct. So he goes in there and it takes him 3 more years. Now he's 13. Like the maximum time it takes them to decide this is 13. They can decide it in less. But the maximum is 3 years more added to the 10.
Plus
So it's gonna be 3 years.
Thank you. So you're going to look at that and say, okay, does he have a kafir? Yes. Does he have the white shoes? Yes. Tattoos pro Palestine? Yes. Okay, he's good. After 3 years, you can enter. Now that's how you're trying to become a citizen of the country. And then you're going to swear. You go in front of the manager, the judge, or whoever it is, the mayor. If the mayor doesn't like the way you're dressed, it's like, oh no, you're missing, what is it that is missing? Olive oil. Zach,
I'm so sorry.
you don't have it today.
Drink it
We're not
all.
going to swear you in. Under discretion, there is a last minute discretionary measure where someone has to say, we can put you in and not put you in. If you survive all of this, you become Italian. Now, that's institutional racism because it's not fair. It takes 13 years. It's meant to discourage you from staying that long in the country. It's meant to discourage you from asking for it. It's meant to. So that's like the most basic one. Then there are so many nuances and layers. If you were born in the country by immigrant parents, and say, for example, your parents at a certain point decide to go back to their home country and not stay there anymore, but you decide to stay or whatever it is. As a minor born and raised in Italy, you can ask for Italian citizenship after you turn 18. You're born and raised in the country after you turn 18, but you have to remind the government to give you your rights. They don't give it to you automatically. They're going to be like, hey, so
I'm here. I still exist.
and you have to do it between your 18th and 19th birthday.
Oh.
If you don't, you've missed the opportunity.
Oh.
So you see how that is
Yeah.
institutional racism. Okay, it might be something also as where you live, like so for students, migrant students in Italy, trying to get to study or whatever, you get 1 year of Italian residency. You have to renew it every year. For every year that you're enrolled in school, you have to go and confirm to the police station, whoever say, I am still enrolled in school. They will give you another 1 year of permits. But you are enrolled in a 3-year course, undergrad.
They could have just given you a 3-year, like, in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
You dig? So there are so many
But no.
layers of
Yeah.
obstacles.
They
So
don't know.
institutional racism is the obstacles that the states create to make it difficult for citizens, residents, and any other person to not have access to certain benefits that the state has the ability to guarantee.
Yeah. But it also involves like zoning issues. It also involves like police, education,
Police
and all
brutality,
that.
racial profiling,
Like,
all of those
money-
things.
Money goes to certain
Yeah.
areas and not certain areas.
If it comes from the state's mechanism, that makes it institutional.
Yeah.
Then if it's racist in nature, it makes it institutional racism. Which is different from cultural racism, which is like, I don't like you. Puto.
Talking about the producer of that over here.
So it's more like state sanctioned racism.
Bravissimo.
It's not
Yeah.
frowned upon
Legitimized.
because the state decided
Yeah.
that it's okay.
So it's not
Legitimized.
It's
racism.
legitimized. by the
Legitimized.
state.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's like in 48, so basically what is now called Israel, air quotes. Like I was talking, so one day I was on the plane and there was a German guy next to me, and then we started to talk about, so I was reading a book about Palestine, a book, I think it was Ilan Pape, by Ilan Pape.
Oh.
And then we started to talk, and then he was talking to me about how, you know, as a German, you can't really speak out against Israel. It's like really frowned upon. It's like, you know, it's very taboo. And I was telling him how, you know, he was like, oh yeah, democracy. And I was like, no, it's not a democracy. And then he was like, yes, it is a democracy. You can say that it is apartheid. Yes, apartheid, but it is a democracy. And I was like, no,
Democracy
it's not
where?
democracy.
In Israel?
Yes, because
Oh,
they say
Jesus.
the only democracy in the Middle East. And he was like, yes, everyone has the right to vote. But then you have to think beyond that, you know, the fact that, you know, when you're Arab, so Arab Israeli, air quotes, like how they call them, so, you know, Palestinians who stayed in 48.
48 Palestinians. Yeah.
48 Palestinians, you know, they do not have the same access to education. They can only live in certain places. They only have access to certain, like, they don't have access to certain communities and stuff like that.
Zoning laws are insane.
Exactly. So
Racist.
all this is institutional racism. I mean, it's pushed to its boundaries in 48, but yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because like most people assume that we talk about the fact that democracy is it's about its shared values that most people see themselves. So when they hear the word democracy, they hear similar. They hear me, you, the same values, the same cultures, the same principles, the same things we believe in. And they say, like you just mentioned, everyone has the right to vote. People assume that democracy is only about elections.
Yeah, exactly.
Free and fair elections and continuous and regular. Let's doesn't forget that.
Yeah, but every 5 years or 4 years, it's not like every day.
Regular elections, uninterrupted elections, free and fair. Everyone has access to vote. China is a democracy. People vote in China.
Russia too, right?
I capito.
But then you get like, a few bills.
I capito.
your
People
way
who vote,
or-
like, in certain places you have one party. In the US, you have two. You are only allowed to vote, or rather, they might
mean,
have like there's
there's
a
a
third
third
independent.
party,
There is
But
one,
how?
But yeah.
Yeah. In reality.
In
it's
reality,
just two parties, yeah.
Have you ever tried creating another? So it's like, what are we talking about? What are you guys actually saying when you mean democracy, when you mean elections, as if that is the only thing that guarantees liberation and peace and the pursuit of happiness, air quote. Let's go back to that principle of, anyway, so like, it's not only that. It's not only elections. It's not only, if you say that, you are now assuming that under those values, under those principles, harm and violence cannot occur. If you assume that everywhere democracy is, everywhere elections occur, injustice is absent. And that is what justifies people's ignorance and deniability to the injustice that is being raised by people that are saying shit is fucking going down.
Yeah.
And they say, no, it cannot be going down in a democracy. They have...
Yeah. This resonates like so much with me, being, Algerian French. And in France, there is no races. Like, people don't, like, the government doesn't acknowledge the existence of races. Saying that races exist is being racist, basically.
Yeah.
So with this loophole, there's no racism because race doesn't exist.
It's a con, yeah.
So
they
it's
know
exactly
it's a
that.
con.
Yeah, exactly.
Because under
no
the
race,
rules
no
that you
racism.
said, you cannot say those things because that means it's like what now on the other side when it comes to activisms. So I recently watched The Matrix. It's one of my favorite movies ever.
So rewatched.
Rewatched. I will watch it anytime, any day.
By the way, people tell me I look like Keanu Reeves.
Oh, we should put this at the beginning of the podcast.
Exactly.
When we're praising Zach. So basically,
People lie to me apparently.
don't worry, it doesn't matter. We have a saying in Nigerian pidgin English. I'm gonna tell it to you right now. You say monkey no fine, but in mama like him. It means the monkey is not pretty, but the mother loves it. Regardless.
Oh, wait, we have the same in Egypt.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
So basically, bro, keep going.
you, Mama.
It doesn't matter, bro. So
My
basically,
dear mama.
so the point is like, I think I forgot what I was about to say.
We were talking about The Matrix.
That
You
might
watched
be-
it.
Yes. So it's one of my favorite movies,
Distracting
The
us.
Matrix. And one of the things we were discussing, and like I saw the movie recently again with a couple of friends, and the discussion came out about opening people's eyes, understanding the layers of like it's so deep. That movie is so deep. But if you bring it back to reality, it's more like, what is it going to take for you to see
Yeah.
that this
Do you
things
choose to be
are
blind or
happening?
do you choose... Yeah.
That these things are happening. So whenever you're raising awareness on something, understand what you're trying to do. You're basically trying to shock the system. You are a virus trying to tell someone that everything they know, they think they know, their values, their assumptions, whatever, it's not only wrong, but there is a possibility that it might be a different perspective.
Yeah.
Like, they don't want to accept that. People would rather stay in denial.
Yeah.
Then have their reality destroyed.
Checked.
Yeah.
It's trauma. Like, we
Just question.
are injectors of
destroyed,
trauma.
Just
Yeah,
question. Just
exactly.
like touch.
Fracture.
Yeah.
Like,
Wait
as
a
a
minute,
person,
it's not that
yeah.
stable.
As a person yelling and raising awareness, what you do is taking an injection and put it, you are forcing reality check. You are forcing trauma, like convulsion. You want people. That's why when you watch The Matrix and Neo is being pulled out, he's like,
Yeah.
it's trauma. It's a traumatic experience to reawaken.
Such a shock.
It's not
Yeah.
easy. You're basically telling people you're pulling the plug on them, and their resistance, like, leave me, I want to stay here. What's your problem?
Yeah.
Uncomfortable.
They're literally looking at you as you're like, what the fuck is your problem? Can I leave? So the resistance that is coming from them and the persistence that is coming from us is at a clash. And you cannot wake people that are unwilling. If you force an awakening on someone that is unwilling, you kill them. You're literally killing them because they would not know how to. You're forcing something.
Yeah, of course, because you're like, the way you work is based on your consciousness.
Exactly.
And your
it's like
you
we
live
have to
in a
go deep
framework.
into that and understand it.
Yeah.
What you can do is plant seeds, plant plugs, and allow people to make choices. It's about choices. Like, you can literally.
Democracy? Are you talking about democracy?
I'm not. The choices of understanding and choosing to look beyond the obvious. Because if you're telling, like, people's obvious is, man, it's something that only the willing will reawake. That's what I learned from so many conversations with people that know better than me. Such as Neo from South Africa.
Back to South Africa. But before we talked about the Matrix, we talked about, so you say you like talking about Nigeria.
I did.
And so, there's pride when you talk about Nigeria.
Of course, big one.
As being in the diaspora. Because when you go to Nigeria, I guess the idea of Nigeria is very different from when you're outside.
Vero.
So can you talk about, like, this sort of, this gap,
dynamic.
the duality of Nigeria as a...
Right. So the one thing that connects all Nigerians is the thing that I was telling you about, the understanding of the struggle that all of them have gone through. So that would be, I understand the reason you take shortcuts. I understand the reason this is good enough. I understand the reason you have to do this yourself. So that one thing is what connects all Nigerians, regardless of where they come from, whatever. We know that every Nigerian has these three things in them. We know they have seen it. They're exposed to it. Okay. That is the common denominator, in my opinion. Humbly, but not so humble. So...
Humbly arrogant.
Exactly. However, outside of Nigeria, people want to defend that unequivocally.
Yeah.
We celebrate our Nigerianness. We understand how difficult the country has gone. Like, we know how we are not united, and you cannot tell us we are not united. We can tell us that. So we will come for anybody that tries to come for us.
But then between you're gonna fight.
Between us, it's a beef all day. But then you go back into the country, and you see there are so many issues because of the expectations and hope that people have. Nigeria has a lot of potential, and that potential is what drives the pride. It's not necessarily what is or what was. The pride that Nigerians have is deeply rooted in our potential.
What could we be? What will we be?
Exactly. So, and that potential at the same time is connected to an endless vacuum of hope. that people see, but they don't believe it. They see it, and it's like, I see hope. I see it, but I've been disappointed so many times. This hope is not coming closer. They can actually, they're very pragmatic people. They can see it clearly. You're like, okay, I see what you're showing me. You've showed it to me many times. Not from today. You showed it to me in colonization. You showed it to me in the independence. You showed it to me in the First Republic, in the Second Republic, in the Third, in the Fourth. I seen it. Now I'm making my way. I'm making my shortcuts. I'm taking what is good enough, and I'm making sacrifices. You know, I'm making everything, still hoping in the thing that you're selling me to happen, but I've been fucked so many times. So I see the potential of that hope to come close, but I don't see the actions of making it come close. So it's like a duality of hope and pragmatism. And that is why you see people are so happy, they're so funny, they can make jokes out of anything. Humor is not only a tool of survival and resilience, and you know, it's also a way of like just encouraging more resilience or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's a big thing. Like, you would never find, you might find some Nigerians that are a little bit depressed or whatever, but it's not for long. It's not for long.
Until the next joke.
It's not for long.
Until the next joke.
I swear that. Thank you, Zach. It's not for long. So that is a thing that happens there. And however, there is a lot of also in-country division. You know, I talked earlier about how there's in Africa we know xenophobia. We don't know racism, but we know xenophobia. We are not trustful of others. We are suspicious of others most of the time. And that is not, I wouldn't say that is necessarily something that is African. That also might be colonial because of the principle of divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Okay, which is a Roman tactic. Back to those guys, you know. But it's also something that because you've divided and conquered, you know, there should be what should have happened after decolonization, which was the colonization. In my opinion, is divide and conquer. Decolonization is unite and prosper. That has not happened yet in all of the decolonized world.
What is it? What is to unite though? To unite is to do what exactly? That is one thing that I'm stuck on.
It will
these days.
suppress
Like,
some differences, right?
What is it to unite?
To unite, that's a good question. I might give you an on point thoughts. I haven't thought about this honestly, but I would give you something that I assume is what I should think about. So to unite is basically to sacrifice together.
Oh,
You know,
Sacrifice together.
That means so one of the concepts which I've did a lot of workshops back in Europe before coming to Japan, especially on anti-racism work. In anti-racism circles, you hear the word allies a lot. People don't know what alliance mean. They think it's okay. You help me do something. Thank you. I support you or whatever. Ooh, kumbaya. You're you know my struggle. You know what I go. You think you know what I go. That's not it. We worked on the word, on the etymology of the word. With so many people, we discussed it, and then people gave their impressions, experiences, understanding, perceptions of what these words mean. Alliance means whatever I go through, you go through.
yeah.
We share the same fate. You and I are in the same trenches together.
Share
My
the
back
same
against your
space.
back.
Yeah.
I sign my deal, the same paper. Whatever I go through, you go through. Not Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. It's an alliance. We are in this together. Whatever happens, you and I are on the same game.
Yeah.
Basically, that is alliance. Doesn't mean you support me. It means
We're
if
in
I'm
this
going
together.
through it, if bombs are coming on my head, it's same thing. In the trenches. Whatever I go through, you go through. That means I would trust you with my fate. So we are going through the same sacrifices, the same struggle, through the same mud. We're crawling, we're rising, we're moving. In alliance. So when you say you are my ally, I expect you, expectation, based on something rooted in common understanding, not wishful thinking. I expect you and I want you and I know that I will do the same to be there the whole time. That is an alliance. Otherwise, we have an agreement. When the agreement expires, you go. When the alliance expires, the alliances are not only forever. There is things that at a certain point we can renew it, renegotiate or whatever. So you understand these things, and it's understand that unless they are binding. So in that situation, for me, uniting means that.
Crossing fingers right now.
Crossing fingers, merging it, hooking together. You know, there's nothing that's going to separate this. That is unity, because it means you and I, the Europeans, have understood this. That's why they stopped fighting themselves. It's like, let's unite and have open bound.
I mean, there's
borders,
some
obviously. Okay, those are the issues that would account for renegotiation and talking and shaping that alliance and the unity, whatever it is. But we know what it like. It's like it's a common faith.
No, like how has unity worked in Nigeria? Because I'm sure. Okay.
It hasn't. What is happening in Nigeria is like, when two friends are drunk and they're walking home together.
Say yes.
We know where we have to go. We are just supporting each other.
Shortcuts, let's just rest here. Middle of the street.
So we're walking home like dangling, singing together. If you fall, I laugh and I wait for you to stand up and we continue. Sometimes I get angry of what you did to me that same night or whatever. Maybe like, you didn't tell me that someone, So basically you're walking drunkenly towards a destination.
But still together. Because, but I'm sure there are some people, because when I did some research about like the colonial past of Nigeria, so they were. So what the British did to get more forces is that they recruited some what they thought were fighting tribes, like more like army tribes, and they recruited them to and like those people are now like the army of Nigeria. Which means that they have more power, and I'm sure so that created ethnical tension.
Yeah.
So I'm sure some people don't want unity. They're like, do your things together. I want my own shit.
There is a civil war that happened in Nigeria that created a lot of separation. In fact, let's go back to that real quick. The civil war in Nigeria. Oh, babe. Batichinkwe. Yes, high five. Yeah. So basically,
the photo.
Yep.
The famous.
Please tell the people at home for them to know.
Children.
Yeah. So basically, the Biafra-Nigeria war, civil war, was a massacre, that on the losing side, which would be the Biafrans, which are the southern tribes and cultures of Nigeria.
It's like southeast,
basically, So, and what happened there was they wanted separation due to like mismanagement of resources and the fact that it's very political. I encourage people to research it. I'm not going to stay here and extend this thing because it's long.
Is the southeast mostly Igbo people?
Mostly, yeah.
Mostly,
yeah. There are other minority tribes around it, but yeah.
But they were the ones who were like, no king, no.
There you go.
No
They're
leader.
more democratic. Yeah. I wouldn't use democratic in the word, but we were talking also about the lack of or the lost institutional frameworks that we will never know how to define.
Yes.
The possibilities.
Yes.
So I don't have the terminology to say what they are, but the closest would be that they were democratic in societal structure. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Now back to that, the north is a little bit more feudal. Okay, in terms of hierarchy and structural position and religion and everything, while the southwest is more aristocratic. It's a caliphate. The north is a caliphate. Why? The southeast is more aristocratic and more, connected to so many other layers of stuff. So back to the thing, in Nigerian culture, this clash of cultural differences led to war. Cultural and political differences led to war. The war there were a lot of casualties on the losing side, which would be the Biafrans, who wanted separation from Nigeria as a unified federation country. Now, what that happened is after that, you have to reintegrate, reaccept, reintroduce these people that wanted to go their own way into a unified country. Now, there is cultural trauma connected to that. People still feel guilty about the war. People still feel they weren't compensated because of the injustice of what they lost. People feel like there are no reparations. People feel like there is like we didn't get what happened in South Africa, which is the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, considering there was a lot of injustices that happened during the war, including an economic blockade that led to more than 3 million people dying, most of them including babies. That died with that had a lot of malnutrition disease called kwashiorkor, and because of that led to the modern utilization of pictures of suffering kids to raise campaign and funds for NGOs and all of these things, and awareness on poverty, hunger, and whatever else. It started there. So now, if you go back to those conditions and expect people to still be happy and smile and assume that nothing ever happened, it's still a problem. But what you have is an older generation that are not talking about this. I think the first episode mentioned about trauma in terms of people that went through the fight. It's the same thing. But now you have younger generations that are learning and still have something called inherited will. For all of my One Piece listeners out there, it's a thing called inherited will where you inherit the trauma and the struggles of people that precede you. You want to see it happen. The exist, resist, and return that Palestinians are talking about. It's not them. It's the fights of. It's a legacy thing. It's the will to achieve something that has started before you, including justice. So because of that, you have all of these things happening in those countries, like in the Nigerian situation. Nobody still is addressing it. It's still layered. But one day it's going to emerge, and people will. Sometimes it flares up. It flares up. There are clashes, tensions, but it's still there. It's still lingering, and waiting to be told. It's waiting to emerge, waiting to be narrated, waiting to be at the forefront of justice. Time, in my opinion, is not. Truth is not subjected to time. It will emerge when it wants. And when it emerges, justice is there to receive it. So whatever happens, the truth will take it time to come out. When people say, for example, when they talk about women that have gone through violence or sexual abuse or whatever, they say, why didn't you complain when it happened? Truth is not a subject of time. It will emerge. And when it emerges, justice will there to receive it.
It's like the Me Too movement. Like,
thank you.
Many stories.
It doesn't matter when it happened. It will come out when it's time for it. These are legacy issues. So when it does happen, so in the case of the Nigerian situation, you have these things that are shaping cultures and identity. People have their languages disappearing because they don't feel comfortable speaking it because their parents didn't allow them to learn and speak the language immediately after the war for fear of persecution.
Sorry, guys.
For fear of persecution, freshly after the war. That means those children grew up, have kids, they don't speak the language. Now their grandkids don't speak the language. Now identity is being erased, partially. So the same thing is like in so many places. It very different atmosphere that creates the tension that we were talking about in terms of unity. But for unity to happen, all of these things need to be addressed at the core. To be why it happened, who did what, claim it, name it, address it. So that's the one thing from that perspective. And this also applies to like questions about the one state and the two state solution that people talk about when it comes to Palestine.
You have issues with both systems, like solutions, I guess.
For two state solution to happen, complete separation. For one state solution to happen, you need to be exposed to the ugliness of truth.
But even with two-state
and
solution,
the duty of justice,
because like if you're giving up one part of what's originally Palestine, then you have to give up to the right to return, and to a certain part of history. It means that you have to acknowledge the I guess Israel's right to exist, as in like giving it a state. which means that you have to acknowledge it.
The
which means
Palestinians have to acknowledge
as a
Israelis'
Palestinian.
right to exist.
Yeah.
That's something international legal systems haven't even considered. Because that is colonization. You coming in and taking something and saying, this is like when we're dividing you up and taking all of your stuff.
Yeah.
You didn't say we could take it. So in my opinion, personally, I'm a Palestinian, so I have no right to say this, but I will say it regardless for consideration, because this is a podcast about entertainment.
Air quotes everywhere.
Air quotes everywhere. Palestinians, historically, due to their connection to the land, they have the last and absolute say on if the state of Israel has the right to exist, because it's only going to exist in their, say it, Zach, land and territory.
Almost said it.
If you am a guest in your house, you are the one that's going to tell me, Dozo, come in, stay as much as you want. This is no longer my apartment, it's ours. Pay rent. You know, so who has the last say is not who is not, I don't know, whatever.
Europeans
It's
came
not
in.
whoever's not here. It's whoever has the house, whoever has the studio, whoever, like, who pays, who has the most cost to the land.
Of course.
Decides what happens.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that has never been occurred, that has never been said before anywhere, about who gets to decide this thing called right to exist.
Yeah. It's not something that both sides, air quotes,
It wasn't
discussed.
decided.
It's
It wasn't
Palestinians
discussed.
decide.
It wasn't discussed. They were not consulted
Of course.
in the conversation.
UN was like, this, I mean,
It was the Berlin Conference all over
that.
again. So, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
So that's the...
But regarding like unity, it's like, you know, when you think about it, it's like, so, you know, for one state and two states, like there's some like issues with both, because you have, you know, if it's one state, you have the unity with everyone who lives there. But even two states, like in the state of like, you know, divided Palestine, which, you know, they would get only one part, it's like there's the people who want the whole state who are like, you know, that's where I'm from. I'm not from, you know, if you're in Gaza, like I'm not from Gaza. I'm from Jaffa or like another city. It's like, why would this be my state when my state is like where, you know,
that is the conversation we're having. Like, you get to decide what you want to do with the thing that you have. Or the thing that is yours, so the thing that you claim, or your, like, you get to decide it, not whoever outside. Whoever is in the other side gets to say, okay, I want to go live there on these conditions, and it's like they have to be involved and centered at the core of the conversation. It's not for me, for you, for her, like for her, yeah.
Yeah, we've been talking about the Palestinians here.
Wait, so but, going back to Nigeria, Nigeria is it's a hello. Nigeria is states, right?
Yeah, it's a federation of 36 states.
It's a federation of states, and then the what's the DC? Is it Lagos?
No, it's Abuja. It's the FCT.
Oh, Abuja, right. Abuja.
We don't have a DC. We have the FCT. It's called the Federal Capital Territory.
Gotcha.
So it's like the territory of the federation of all the states, of the 36 states. So
how much authority does each state have over its own state? Like, versus
a
like the
a lot in defining. It's more like similar because we copied the US and that. You know, so it's more or less like
you were forced to copy the US.
Oh my God, let's not even go there. So it's a federation of 36 states, all of them indigenous, autonomous, and independent, but they come together to form this federation of, you know, territories together. So states can define. So there is a central definition of. I might be wrong here, but I love the Nigerian Constitution when I studied it, but I don't remember most of it now. So there is a financial budgetary level that is decided at the federal level, but states get to implement those things. So when it comes to, like, for example, healthcare, you know, the states define, in my opinion, I think I have to verify this. They define the healthcare in that particular is independent. Certain subjects, let me put it this way, certain subject matter are of state level. Other matters are of national level. You know what I mean?
Are the states divided according to, like, is it ethnical? Is it like based on language?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, of course, if there's
it's
only
divided according to like ethnicities, tribes,
like tribes that get
indigenousness.
along.
No.
Okay,
Like, so for example, so we're talking about the Igbo people, right?
yeah,
So the Igbo people occupy most of the southern eastern Nigeria.
yeah.
But not everyone in the southern eastern Nigeria speaks Igbo.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So in most of the southeastern states, you have a homogeneous linguistic identity.
Okay.
So if you go to Enugu, they speak Igbo. If you go to Imo State, they speak Igbo. If you go to Abia State, they speak Igbo. If you go to Anambra, they speak Igbo. Right? These are all the states that are in the southeast. But if you go to Cross Rivers, they speak a mix of Igbo and some other languages. If you go to Uyo, they speak another one and another one, but they're all within. So they try to make it in a way that this level of discriminations are like they balanced it out. So from a state level or from the state division of Nigeria, I would say it's pretty balanced. So you cannot go into one state and find one population completely dominating over another population of identities, you know what I mean? So it's pretty balanced. And the same thing goes for the north, from the south. But before, Nigeria used to be, I think it was 8 or 9 states. And then it got to 12, and then to
More and more.
18, 20, 26,
Okay.
30, 36. So these are like, I learned this in school as a kid, but it kept changing. It kept changing to the point people lost count, but the final count is 36 states plus the FCT. You know, so that's the final number. That's just like, okay, we're not dividing it anymore, guys. This is what it is. Let's make it happen. Okay, let's start building from here. So it's pretty culturally diverse. The ethnic and political divide in terms of the borders are balanced out. But the one thing you love about African politics, especially Nigerian politics, you don't have a left or a right. We don't do that shit. What we have is most of the time ethnic, most of the time ethno-religious. But when it comes to political values, you have more like, what are you going to do in terms of policies?
Okay.
Are you building roads? Are you prioritizing energy?
Yeah.
Because people still need infrastructure before they need political ideology. So it's not a political system based on ideological differences. It's a political system based on policies and infrastructural needs, social and cultural needs.
You're talking about like the 36 state level or like the whole country?
All of it.
Everything.
Like the political parties are not arguing if this is a socialist, right, left, Marxist, Leninist, Democrat, like none of that ideological politics.
Oh, yeah.
What they have is
Concrete.
who's going to build more roads,
Yeah.
who's going to provide more basic needs and things like that, because it's still at the beginning of the level of building, of nation building, of state building, because of all the failures in the past.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So apparently, I mean, obviously, some states are going to be probably like majority Muslim, and some states are going to be majority Christian, right?
Yeah.
Does, like, for instance, could a Muslim state have certain clauses in their law or rules that could make it easier for Muslims to exist in Nigeria? And for example, can a majority Christian state have laws that don't exist in other states that make it easier for Christians to live in that state, for instance?
Yeah, so basically in Nigeria there are federal laws, state laws, and local laws.
Yeah. Local laws.
Yeah. Like local governments.
Okay.
So there are local, like the municipality and all this other stuff. But then they have also customary laws.
Customary laws.
Because Nigeria used to be a country of, or territories rather, of kings, of chiefs, of tribes, and they had those lost systems that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And the idea is to respect the existing and resisting cultural and traditional forms of ruling that are there in a way that it doesn't clash with the federal government laws and all these other things. So in certain areas, okay, when it comes to federal land, federal law applies. When it comes to traditional land, customary laws applies. But when it comes to, if they are clashing, the federal wins. So instead, there are certain subjects that are reserved for customary ruling. There are certain other laws, certain issues that are reserved for, air quotes, civilized ruling. So in terms of abortion, for example, which is not even a discussion right now in Nigeria, I'm not sure, I don't want to speculate, but I'm not sure there is an abortion law or there's no. But if we're going to speculate and entertain that, abortion law would not be customary law because it applies to all Nigerian citizens and not specifically to the indigenous people of that particular territory. You dig? So that is the way I would define it. So if there is something specific to the people of that tribe, the customary law takes over. If it's something that affects all Nigerians, the federal law takes over. The constitution applies. So the customary law is recognized in the constitution. That is why in certain places in Nigeria you have Sharia law.
Oh.
Okay, because it's a customary law.
Yeah.
It's a traditional law. It's something that is. So that's that.
So that's pretty flexible though.
It's flexible, it's complicated.
That was That was the workaround.
That is the workaround. It's
That
the
was
compromise that they all have to get to build this thing. So, and it's so interesting. Like everything I've said about these things about Nigeria can be verified. And I'm like, okay, again, what is it that we've been saying so far?
Entertainment.
It's for entertainment purposes. If you're really interested, do your own research.
Yeah.
Please,
Prove him wrong.
Please don't take my word for it. Entertain yourself. If it triggers you to be interested, expand and become someone with more. Yeah, expand your ideas, please.
No matter what, dig more, because the more you know, the better.
I'm on that Kendrick Lamar vibe where it's like, I'm not your savior.
Are you not?
No.
I thought you were.
We have to stop taking things on face value because somewhere you heard it on TV or you heard it on a podcast or in a song. Do your own research if it interests you. Please, this is just a way for, how do you say, to get people to expand their ideas and whatever they think they know. If you like it,
subscribe,
share, repost it, and then follow. But before you follow, verify that you're following correctly.
Exactly, follow the right people. But just before what you said with so for each state there's no clear ethnical domination.
Yeah.
What about the entire country? At the more country level, is there?
You mean population wise or demographic wise?
No, power.
Oh.
Political power, economical power.
Political power is always an imbalance. It's an imbalanced system anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So let me correct myself when I say there is no domination. There are clearly majorities in certain places. Okay. Let me redefine that. So majorities apply.
Yeah.
But suppression in terms of minorities within certain places, it's very, very limited.
Okay.
So in terms of the historical minorities that are living in a certain territory next to a majority. But if you're just moving there, you're clearly you're not even a minority, you're just a visitor. Or a recently moved resident. Okay, so if a Muslim person from the north moves to Enugu State in Nigeria or Abia State in Nigeria, which is predominantly Christian.
Which are where?
In the southeast. Okay, you move there, you're not considered in the ideological way a minority there. You're a minority resident. But if me, next to the populations of Igbo people that are living there, have my ancestors' land and I'm from Efik tribe, next to the Igbo tribe, I am an indigenous minority because I have my land there. I don't just have like an apartment. I have my land there.
Yeah.
So in that state, my indigenous identity is next to the indigenous majority. So there you have indigenous minorities and indigenous majorities within a state. But if you have someone from another state with another cultural identity and values that move in, you're a resident. You just move there for your school, whatever it is you move there for. It's yes, you're a minority, but you're not an indigenous minority because your land is not that place. So most Nigerians go to their homeland, to the indigenous places to vote. They cannot vote in the state that they are living in. Unless it's a local, elections or whatever it is that, we have to go into the deeper politics of it, which I don't have the information of. But as far as I know, when there's presidential elections, you go back to your home state to vote. When there's senatorial elections, you go back to your home state to vote because those are federal issues.
So you can't really, like, no matter what you do, like, your identity or at least, like, your situation isn't, you can't separate it from your people's history.
Oh, it's an indigenous country. Nigeria, like all of Africa, is indigenous in terms of its connection to roots and history and traditions. So indigenous in the sense that there is an external factor that is predominant, which means laws, which means politics, which means language also. When your language, one of the main languages you speak, is not of yours, of your land, then your identity makes it indigenous. So if you're Congolese and you speak French in Congo, you're an indigenous person because there is an external factor influencing that. In France, there are no indigenous identities in France because everybody speaks French. If I and Beto decide to move our languages and come to France and establish it, then France will become an indigenous language because we are now imposing something on it.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of things, and we obviously still have so many other things to talk about. But one thing that I started thinking about is, what do you think are the lessons that we can take from the history of the nation creation in Nigeria to the hopeful liberation and nation creation of Palestine?
That is very, very, very interesting conversation.
You are a
this is another
strong pro-Palestine activist yourself, and I am sure you have thought about this once or twice.
I have. This is another 50 minutes of conversation.
Get ready.
No, it's simpler than that. I would say, like, when it comes to moving forward, we have to understand perfectly that violence has occurred. Trauma is endured, and for something new to come out that will celebrate the hope of everyone that was looking forward to something more stable. The truth that I will share that from Nigeria is basically the fact that Nigeria hasn't really recovered from so many things.
Hasn't recovered.
It hasn't. A lot of these countries that have gone through violence, that has seen trauma, that know struggle, haven't really recovered from it. They're still exposed to the powers of it. They're still exposed to so many turbulence surrounding that experience. So the idea is not to wait for something, for the end of something, to start thinking about what can we take. It's start looking at it now. Look at what happened in South Africa. How are the South Africans dealing after so many things? What challenges are they still going through? What are Nigerians going through? So in case of Nigerians, it's like, okay, you have this reintegration process after a big fight of, like when you fight with your brother, your sibling, or your parents, then you have to make peace again. You know, but there are so many things you still want to talk about at the root causes of it, so that something like that doesn't happen again. You know, so Nigeria is still at the point where, like, okay, you can come in back to the house and have some food, but I'm still mad at you. You know, so we haven't really gotten to the point where you are addressing root causes openly, because the infrastructure to be able to do that is lacking. So it's to identify how to build the immunity to talk about historical violent experiences and go forward. And I'm using the word immunity there because it's important. Because most people, because of the lack of tools and this immunity to face these challenges, are running away from it. They're extending it, they're pushing it, they're procrastinating this thing as if it's going to magically disappear.
Yeah.
And that is the feeling that most people have, that if you ignore it so much, it would disappear.
It will stop existing.
It will stop existing. It doesn't.
You just push it off to the next generation.
And the next generation will ignore it. And then another, it's like the inherited will. It's like the thing was like somebody's going to take on.
Yeah.
So the idea is to, how do you build the structures that would allow you to face those things? South Africa tried it. They are not completely recovered from it, but at least they've done something. They've given us at least some of the chapters of this blueprint of what to do afterwards. Okay. Even we can learn something. We can learn something from the EU as well. Used to be not EU, like the European. It's not even a continent, because like people assume that Europe is a continent. It's
Western
not.
Europe.
It's Eurasia, like it's one big land.
Okay,
But anyway, let's not go into geography. The fact that Europe is now a place where Europe used to have wars every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It took them so hundreds of years to go to the point. It's like, bro, do you mind stop throwing stones at me? And the other guy was like, I'm sorry, my bad, man. Okay, so what are we doing next? Let's
kill the other people.
Yeah, let's make alliances and then hate other people.
I was
Exactly.
gonna say let's start trading, but yes, the thing
Goes
Zach
together.
said, the thing Zach said, okay.
Trade.
Yeah.
And then you kill some other people.
Just a little,
Open up the borders, have one unique currency, but yeah, Zach, whatever Zach said.
killing. So you just said trading. I just want to mention regarding trading, Unilever.
Oh yeah.
So used to be a major trading company, a Royal Niger company or something.
They are
like
decolonizers.
that. Yes, and they were trading raw material and people as well, slaves and stuff like that. And now they are Unilever. I just want to mention it again because fuck Unilever.
Oh,
Just a parenthesis.
Zach is up for violence today. I support that.
Yes.
But you can go to explore this. There is a song by this Nigerian artist called what's it called again? The artist is called Burna Boy. The album in which this song is referenced is African Giant. And there is a big anecdote why the album is called African Giant, but I will leave you homework to do the research and understand why. The song mentions Unilever.
Oh.
Okay, in the opening introduction, in the opening skit of the song. It's like for the first, it goes like this: to understand Nigeria, you have to understand where it comes from, and then it goes on detail a little bit of Nigerian historical context. So yeah, I would mention that song because it highlights how art can also regenerate historical thoughts and reemerge, some truth for people to do independent research. So those are part of the things that we're discussing. So yeah, connected to it, it's like so many layers of understanding what you can learn to improve on what your ultimate objective is in the situation. If we're still discussing what can we expect or what should Palestine expect in terms of moving forward after it achieves its ultimate objective, of existing, returning, resisting, and building. There are so many experiences to learn from. Nigeria is one of them in so many layers. Yeah. South Africa is one of them. So
When you
many
said
layers.
Nigeria, earlier you talked about immunity. So in a Palestinian context, what would I mean?
So, depending on what what the Palestinian liberation ends up looking like. Okay, so if it ends up looking like the thing that they've been talking about so far, one state, two states, it might look different. So if it's a two-state solution, the immunity would then be not on the Palestinian side, it's on the other side. To be open and available to address the issue, to revisit the issue, because it's not about one and done, like a college athlete playing basketball and then going to the NBA. It's not that. It's about we can call upon the historical atrocities revisited as many times as possible until it's no longer necessary. Because what happened in South Africa when it comes to the apartheid is that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission made it feel as if reconciliation and moving forward was achieved after that thing. Now, if you raise the question again, it's like, again, I thought aren't you satisfied? But it's not. We're not satisfied. We just addressed the violence. We haven't addressed the land. We haven't addressed the emotional aspect. We haven't. So there are so many layers of violence and atrocity that is happening that was not addressed in that commission. It was more, let's be friends. It wasn't political. It wasn't cultural. It wasn't linguistic. It wasn't. So there's so many layers of atrocity that is happening. It's not just one level. So anytime that it's called upon to revisit those things, the other side should be willing and available to do it.
But immunity is what? Like you can't
Immunity
blame
is
them. You can't.
no. Immunity
them to
is the
justice?
emotional intelligence. Immunity is the ability to put yourself in front of peers to be accountable for judgment. Immunity is not taking it personal. Immunity is understanding that this is not about your feelings. It's about your actions.
Yeah.
The emotional,
actually happened.
economical, cultural ability to face the things you've done without having excuses. That's what immunity is.
So it's closer to not resilience, but it's like emotional strength.
Yeah. Nobody wants to be called out on their bullshit.
Distance.
Nobody wants to be called out upon their bullshit. Like, the same thing Germany didn't want to realize, be open to criticism about Namibia. The same thing Japan don't want to be every 2 minutes be reminded that they did some shit to China.
Yeah.
Or Korea.
Or Korea.
Or the rest of Asia.
They don't want that. But it's about, no, whenever it's time for us to raise these issues, please present yourself. Because we addressed one, but we haven't addressed so many others.
Yeah.
And the atrocities, that is the thing. The assumption is that one generation is enough to address the issues and violence that you've committed. No. The first generation, their compromise was accepting the deal. And part of that deal was like, okay, let's do the let's be friends thing. The next generation is going to be like, yeah, since we're now friends, can we talk about...
Yeah.
The other ones are going to be like, okay, you were friends with my dad, but you didn't actually finish the... And layers and layers and layers of shit needs to be actually opened up and allow the flies to go out. So it's like the assumption that one address is enough to make things better. When?
Very naive.
It's very naive. When has it ever happened that you got injured and you put a band-aid and that was the end of it? You have to take it off. Put this. Oh, come on, man. So that is the one thing to learn from this. is that the compromise to move forward is not definite.
There are like endless layers of reconciliation that have to be.
Thank you.
Yeah, because there's residues, you know,
yeah.
it stays. So you have to address like this, and you're like, yeah, but where does
Yeah.
it come from? It comes
Exactly.
from what
Because
happened.
when another person raises the issue, like what is happening in there is this South African politician, I can't remember his name, he raised the issue about land. And now people are looking at him as he's an idiot or as an extremist or whatever. It's like, no, it wasn't addressed at the time. I'm not sure if he's an extremist or whatever. I don't even know the guy that well. But the point is that when issues are raised about things that are still lingering, whoever has responsibility for that does not want it to happen.
Yeah.
Because they will say, but we paid you already. We gave you that thing, didn't we? It's like, no.
It's not in his interest to get it like
To
bring it up
revisit
again.
issues.
Yeah, to revisit it.
You know, it's not the interest of people to revisit issues and historical. It's like, no, whenever it is time, we can also revisit the thing that you did and then just to discuss it for a matter of fact. Not only because we want to address new things, we just want to see if the archives preserved it very well.
Yeah.
We might revisit for
Exactly.
entertainment.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no. But yeah, so the idea is to be open to these things and open and accountable to them, regardless of how many times people want to talk about it.
Wow.
But no one is going to be able to do that. That is
so much emotional strength.
Oh.
Yeah.
My God.
So
which is why it's too much work for one person,
Yeah.
or for one generation, or for one group. It's too much. Both for the
That makes so much
the
sense.
victim and the perpetrator. It's too much.
That makes so much sense.
And do you know what example? Now. Because they might tell you it's never happened before. It's difficult. How many movies about Nazis have you seen?
Yeah.
How many times did they shove it in our face about the historical atrocity of Nazis? How many times do we revisit it? It's perpetual at this point. So why can it apply to them and it cannot apply to our violence?
Yeah.
You revisit yours every day. You don't let us forget. So that's the case. Let's do that. So,
You know that they have the capacity to blame themselves. You know, like Germany or France, like, you know, we did this, we make movies, we do, like, oh, we did all those horrible things. But so you blame yourself for some things, but not for the rest. Or in Algeria, or in Nigeria, or in all those countries. No, we didn't do that. We just did that bad thing, but the rest we didn't do it.
Germany paid for Second World War for a long time. When did they stop paying for it recently? They stopped paying for it.
I mean, they're still paying
economically.
for it in
Yeah. They stopped even for the First World War. That was the payments of the First World War led to the Second World War. It's like but the fact is, it's not uncommon. It's just it becomes uncommon when it comes to us, or when it comes to people who have historical lingering violence that hasn't been completely addressed, or halfly addressed. But when it comes like no, you owe me money. And then after you paid me a lot of money, we can be friends. After we become friends, we can start making trades and making one currency together, because now I know you can actually pay up. And then we can be great friends.
And then we shake hands.
And then we shake hands, and then, but the idea is that you revisit it so many ways, through movies, cinema, economically, culturally, so many ways. So the way we visit it can be discussed. But what cannot be discussed is the fact that we have to visit it, revisit it.
Yeah.
So that is what
That
should
is
not...
non-negotiable.
That is non-negotiable.
Yeah. And you have to be open to all the upcoming things. Let's say it's like, okay, the first time, okay, we did this, then we're friends. And then after some new shit comes up, it's like, well, this also happened. Like nobody talked about this, but this also happened. So you have to be able to always look at yourself as, and blame yourself for whatever happened.
Big
that
fact.
is new.
Big fact, yeah. So that is my take to your question about what can we learn from. We learn to revisit as much as possible.
Make them responsible for their
Yeah.
shit.
Revisit, take it step by step, layer by layer.
Yeah. Like,
Build trust bit by bit, generation
Sit
by
tight. It's
generation.
gonna be long.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess that is also one very important thing. This does not happen in one day.
Yeah,
This
you said
is-
resilience.
Yeah, this is hundreds of years possibly.
Yeah, there is a inheritance, and it's like we've mentioned a couple of times in this, in the recording, legacy. It's a legacy thing.
Yeah.
It's a legacy. Like you live inheritance, you live that. Like normally, in when it comes to the inheritance law, if you inherit my goods, you also inherit my debts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a good example.
So it's not only you
Yeah.
can't just take one and leave the other. Hey, amico, no,
They come together. They come together. That was
they all go
beautiful.
together,
That's
isn't it?
true.
So that's what I think about these things. But yeah,
That was a
beautiful.
really nice metaphor or comparison.
Yeah.
yes,
Paragone.
Puto approves.
Producer approves.
I think this is a great way to end this
Yes.
episode, but I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
yes, it
we're
was.
definitely going to have you over again.
Ah,
There's
Yeah.
way
Wait.
too much to talk about for one
did you
episode.
extend the same thing to the South Africans? No,
I did.
you did.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
You have to shake
We-
hands, make peace.
No,
you know,
no,
We
don't
are
worry,
a
don't
moral podcast.
No, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. You're
Ciao.
It was so good to say, guys. Ciao.